Usury. Well, there's an interesting word you don't hear very often. Not in today's world, anyway. Usury is unfair advantage taken of someone financially. How do you define what's unfair? Well, it depends. If you go back to the year 1235 in England, that's 20 years after the Magna Carta was first written up. Okay, and to give you an idea, there was no law written down before 1215 in the United Kingdom that was really lasting. There were other forms of law, but they weren't so well defined. So, in the time of Henry III, the barons and the archbishops and a number of others drew Henry together at a place called Merton. And they said, you know what, Henry? We got to have some rules. This thing called the Magna Carta is good, but we need more. And it was the very first statute. And in that statute, they wrote down that usury shall not be allowed, period. They did a number of other things too, like they defined the ability of women to inherit and to pass along from their husbands to their children. That was called being a dower. Anyway, important thing here is usury. Usury is thus, as far as you can see from what I've just told you, a concept that goes back over 800 years, legally, written down and followed. So, from 1235 until 2000 and something, we had a law that said usury was wrong. And around 1867, we formed Canada. Well, actually, in exactly 1867, on the 1st of July, Canada was formed as a dominion. That meant that we were actually legally still a colony of the United Kingdom. By the way, we were happy to be that. So there is no animosity there. For anybody who's watching this, we were quite happy to be a colony for a very long time. And so we inherited our law directly from the UK. We created the criminal code. If you look into the criminal code, you'll find that there's a section on usury. Yeah, I think it's section 247, but I could be wrong about the number. So just know for sure that usury is in there. Back in my childhood, the usury limit was 47% interest. Anything more than that was illegal. Can you imagine? That's like if you take out a loan for $1,000 on January 1st, by the end of the year, you'd owe them nearly $1,500. And that was legal. Wow. That's a lot of interest. $500 on borrowing $1,000? Well, I guess that's how credit card companies got to be, right? Because they can charge you 29% annual interest, and people are still kind of ticked off about that. It's dreadful, but that's what happens if you don't pay off your credit card. And still, usury is worse than credit card interest by twice. Or at least it used to be, but it's not anymore. No. We had a prime minister named Stephen Harper. Stephen is possibly one of the worst dullards I've ever heard of. He changed the usury interest rate after 800 years from 47% to 1,200%. Now, maybe you're lousy at math, and I know a lot of people are, and percents are kind of, what does that really mean? What it really means is this: if I charge you an amount of interest equal to your loan every month, then that's okay. Let that sink in for a minute. So you borrow $1,000 from me January 1st. February 1st, you owe me $2,000. March 1st, $3,000, and so on. And by the end of the year, you owe me $13,000. And that is what Stephen Harper made legal. But why? What does a conservative possibly get from this? Well, who lends money like that? Scumbags? Yeah. We used to call them loan sharks. These are people who used to, by the way, they actually existed, of course. They've always existed, and they always will. But these were not people you really ever wanted to have anything to do with. They're like right up there with the most undesirable people in the world. I won't name any others. You just didn't want to go down the back alley with somebody and say, "Excuse me, can I borrow $100? I want to go gambling." Because, if you didn't pay them back the next day, they were going to send a couple of guys out to take it out of you. If you didn't give them the money, they'd hurt you. Well, now they don't hurt you. They just put you into bankruptcy. And who was this really serving? I mean, banks have been around forever, and they've done just fine. So the banks, they charge fees and stuff like that. And they could probably charge a little more, but we'll all get really mad and take our business away if the banks get too carried away. So that's not it. No, it was really for payday loan companies. Payday loan companies are a social ill. There are people who are always desperate. But when you make it easy for desperate people to make bad mistakes, which is what Harper's change to the law did, then you let them get in trouble. And when you let them get into trouble, they become destitute. And then they become things like homeless. And then everybody has a problem. Now, of course, nobody has to pay for somebody who's homeless to have a home, especially somebody who's making a lot of money that doesn't want to pay a lot of tax. Or what about if you've got a lot of money and want to lend it? But the rate is 5%. Oh, rats. Well, today, if someone says to you 5%, you're probably going to be pretty happy with that. Because, the bank is lending money for your house at 2.2, and they got to be making money at that. So you're probably getting paid 0.2% at the bank if you've got $5,000 in it or something. It's just absurd. So, usury was permitted in a much greater way in Canada by Stephen Harper, the Conservative Party of Canada. Now, one of the things I've run across when talking to people about this was that a lot of them believe that it was something to do with the provincial government. Why? Well, because after Stephen Harper had allowed usury to go wild, that is, he allowed it to increase by 24 times, and then you didn't have to go to jail. And by the way, you did have to go to jail before for being a usurious person. By allowing the people to be usurious, what he did is he said to the provinces, well, you'll have to set up some guiding legislation. Like, which street corner can you put up a payday loan joint on? It really doesn't matter. What mattered is whether or not it was a crime. And Harper was the one who changed that. The Conservative Party of Canada. Now, I'm drilling this into you, Conservative Party of Canada, because I want you to get one thing clear. The Conservative Party of Canada does not like you. It does not care about you today by doing things like allowing lenders to charge usurious interest rates that we've known better than for 800 years. I'm Patrick Stewart. I am not conservative, and you shouldn't be either.